Hello, my name is Paul-Beckett, and today I just want to talk about separation and connection. Since I realized my true nature, I realized that I am one with all that is. And it sounds crazy to say, and it sounds airy fairy, and it sounds like, well, good for you, but I still see myself in this body existing in this place with them over there and me over here and a dog over there and a tree over there. How can I be one with all that is? Just something switched inside me straight away. And I remember looking about myself and thinking, if I had like Play-Doh or plasticine and I was really skilled, I could create a scene that looked really realistic. I could create a person, I could give them hair, I could put the clothes on them, I could create the earth underneath them, I could get a fork, I could make the grass look like the texture of grass, I could make a tree, I could make all of these different things. And I could admire this scene that I've made and go, wow, these are all the bits and pieces. This is the dog, this is the man walking the dog, this is the character in the center, this is the grass, these are the trees. This is all different stuff. But then if I'm to smash that scene that I've just painstakingly made down, what is it? It's still what it always was. It was only ever plasticine put into shapes. So that's kind of how I started understanding the world. I see all the different people around me. I see all the different shapes and sizes, all the different characters we've given each other. But I just had this remembering that even though I'm perceiving it this way in this limited point of view from this body, that's not how it is. We're one energy, okay? And with energy, there couldn't be a gap in between us. What would be the gap if the one energy is our true nature? How can there be a gap where our true nature doesn't exist? It doesn't make sense. So the energy all flows into itself, even though there might be localized points of consciousness within that. Another way to see it is, could you imagine the sea? If I'm thinking about looking at distinctions and looking at separation, I can imagine myself as a bubble, okay? A tiny little bubble existing in this patch of foam, okay? And in this patch of foam, there is thousands of other bubbles, okay? This patch of foam is existing on a wave. This wave is existing in amongst other waves, okay? All of these waves are attached to the sea at the bottom, okay? So I'm a bubble existing in foam on a wave amongst other waves, part of the sea. When that wave crashes down and I cease to be a bubble, was I ever a bubble? Or was I always just part of the ocean? Because the bubble and the foam and the wave, they're not lost. They're still there. They're just part of their greater self. They're part of the sea. And that's all they ever were. They were just what the sea happened to be doing at that moment in time. The sea was being a bubble. The sea was being a patch of foam. The sea was being a wave, but it was never not the ocean. So another kind of way to get your head around this idea of, though we perceive separation, do I have to have a belief in it? Now, this is the thing. I still perceive it. I still live in a world that appears to have all these moving parts, jiggly pokey, you over there, me over here, all of this. Someone's in China, someone's in Australia, there's this massive space between us. But once I realized that everything that is me, is us, is our true nature, my belief in that separation kind of loosened. It didn't, it loosened and loosened and loosened until in the end I realized I am just part of this one whole organism. And it may be expressing itself in all these different shapes and sizes, as all these places with the space in between, with all this, but it is just one thing. Okay, so what is the benefit of this? What is the benefit of this new seeing? Well, it got rid of that idea, that idea of loneliness. It got rid of that idea of like uselessness. Like, what's the point to me being over here, being this tiny little thing? What's my purpose? What am I doing? Why are you over there? Why do you appear to be doing something different? It's just part of what the whole is doing. And I'd heard like this idea, this thing which comes from Eastern philosophy, from Vedic, that there's no doer. And at first I was a bit like, how can there not be a doer? Of course there's a doer. I'm here doing it. But then, as my belief in separation has loosened, I've realized that the I that I called Paul, the character Paul, even though he appeared to be trotting along on his merry little way, you know, the things, my life was being lived through me. Paul was never doing that. Paul was just commenting on it as it went. Paul was just assigning everything that was going on to something that he was doing that was making these things happen. Again, I know it sounds strange. I know it sounds strange because we live in a society that tells us that our individuality is everything, that our opinion, you know, this you're allowed, you're the very fact that we're holding ourselves together as this person means everything to us. So if I was to let go of that idea, what would be? How it would be nothing. That's how we would be. We might think of it. But what if you didn't become nothing? What if you became everything? What if you realized, gosh, I've just always been everything. I'm just experiencing this part of everything. Okay, so if you can imagine energy is free flowing. You know, it's waves of energy. Okay, so while we're holding ourselves together here to be this separate individual, we are tightly knotting up this energy. Like, this is me, this is my name, this is my body, blah 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 blah. We're obstructing the flow of energy. Okay, and it takes a lot of effort to do that. To believe in this separate self, to believe in all these other separate selves. And the reason it feels so lonely and it feels like that human condition of what's the point, is because as soon as you let go of it and you let the energy flow naturally, just as it was before, without you having to hold it up in all these little tight knots that I'm calling me, and these little tight knots of energy over there that I'm calling you, then it's just I am. Then it's just I'm part of everything. I'm experiencing this part of it. I'm not experiencing every point of view at once, but I can enjoy this part of it just as what the all is doing. Okay, and it takes all of that pressure off me as a small I, to be responsible for everything that's going on. Okay, and I'm just being lived. I'm just all that is experiencing this life through this character that we've called Paul, and that's that. Okay, so the connection and the idea of separation, sometimes it can seem like separation is what's holding you together. Well, I wouldn't be me unless I was separate. But what if, when you let go of that idea of separation, when you let go of that idea of a person existing on its own in space and time, what if you became everything? And let me tell you something, that's how I'm living my life now, and it's not scary. I didn't lose a single thing. I gained everything. I gained everything with this feeling of connection. My compassion for other selves, my compassion for other situations went through the roof, because I realized that it was all just ultimately me. I was just this tiny bubble in what the ocean happened to be doing at the time. Okay, so I couldn't then hold on to this bubble and be like, oh, this bubble needs to stay forever, and if I'm not this bubble, what am I going to be? Because as soon as that bubble popped and that wave crashed right back into the ocean, I was just part of everything again. So a little quick video today, really, and I guess it's quite a heavy subject, this, and sometimes when I speak to people about this, they get quite triggered, because we really want to hold on to this idea of me, this idea of a separate self. Because if I wasn't a separate self, what would I be? It seems scary, it seems vast, it seems like you would be lost. But it's just the idea of you, because what you've always been was never that anyway. You've always been all that is, expressing in small different ways. And this isn't the first bubble you've been many other bubbles, you've been many other waves. Okay, so so it's just an idea to loosen that belief in separation. Your eyes are still going to tell you the same story. Okay, you're still going to wander around the world, it's still going to appear exactly as it appears to you, but that relationship to it can change. That belief in that separation can change, knowing that you are just part of what the all is doing. Okay, so have a think. I know it's a lot, it's a mad one, it's a real mad one. And this, you know, even though when I realised my true nature, everything clicked with me in a second, but I still had that little objection you're on a mind that's over here, like, well, maybe I don't want this, maybe that's it, but what about me? What about me? Me? Do you know what I mean? So it took a long time for all those knots of energy that I'd tied together and called me to loosen themselves enough where they could realise that, hang on a minute, nothing bad's happening here. Okay? So I love you, and have a think.